We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email john@nufcmatters.com to arrange today.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break.
What's that you said coming over you? You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you.
And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Welcome everybody to NUFC Matters and the Allon Show. I'm delighted to have a special guest today. He's often been described as tenacious, outstanding ability, but he's one of war own. Lee Clark. Hi Lee, how are you?
Hi Joe, great to see you again, pal. Yeah, I'm fantastic. You looking well yourself, mate?
Top class. Nash, there's loads of questions, but the first one that's coming up on all the time for me is, how's your Bobby getting on? I mean, the culture shock from Newcastle to Liverpool, pretty similar because we're all down to earth. You brought the band up down to earth. That's good. Now he's in Austria. How's he settling in?
Doing very well, Joe. Loves the environment. The club's a superb club for developing young players. He's under the stewardship of Pep Linders, Vitor Moraes and Andreas Koeman, 3 ex-members of staff at Liverpool under Jurgen. Obviously, Jurgen comes into the organisation on January the 1st. I mean, he's starting to learn about some of the ups and downs. I mean, they're expected to be challenging for the title. They're a little bit adrift of their big rivals, Sturm Graz, at the minute, with a couple of games in hand on them. So yeah, they've got it all to do in the second half, but the setup's amazing. The stadium, the facilities, the training facility, obviously the city in Salzburg, and obviously the Red Bull organisation itself. He's getting great exposure in the Champions League. Already been over to watch him in Prague, Sparta Prague away, in Feyenoord away, and Leverkusen away as well. So, and some exciting ties to come in the new year with Real Madrid at the Bernabeu and Atletico Madrid in Salzburg. So exciting times for a 19-year-old lad.
Brilliant stuff, Nash, honestly, and we'll obviously wish him all the very best. And he's settling into a country like that is to be admired for a youngster like that. But we wish him all the best and all our love. Nash, just want to say it like the way the season's been going. I listen to TalkSport every other day. And I catch you a lot on TalkSport. I love your frankness and your honesty as always. I mean, I've known you a long time, but I would say our turn point in the season was the Chelsea game in the Cup. Now, on TalkSport, either the day before or on the day, you've done the most frank interview. So I'm asking you to put your Eddie's head on, be a manager. I said, like most Newcastle supporters, what's going wrong? How do we put it right? How does Eddie change it? And you come up with a brilliant summary, and they actually did it that night, and it was to do with formation and who you thought was the best players. We're going to come to the players individually, but you got your Eddie head on. Tell everybody what you thought then, and the way that they've improved, because things had to change.
Yeah, what I said, Joe, and people might find this a strange sort of statement, but when I explain it, you'll understand why. Your 11 best players don't always make your best team. And what I meant by that was Bruno Guimaraes, Joe Linton and Sandro Tonali are three absolutely fantastic individual players. But that combination in the rhythm is not there as a group, as a three. And we always seem to do better when Sean Longstaff was in the team. Sean gives other players the license to do other things. He gives Bruno the opportunity to become box to box. Whenever we've played with that midfield three, I said previous, we can look good on the ball, but we're susceptible to being hit on the counter attack because all three have a forward thinking brain and they want to be playing final passes or running without the ball. You know, we have the power, obviously, with Joe Linton and things like that, but it's not always your best players. I've experienced myself. You know, I had a spell it with Kilmarnock, and I won't name the lad's name. I had an individual who, you know, he wasn't playing on top of his game every game, but whenever he was in the team, we either won or drew, we never lost. And in the time I took him out the team, we lost the game. And I reverted back to this lad in the team, and as I said, you know, he's not one that was pulling up trees and catching the limelight or whatever, but he just made the team function a lot better. And that's what I was saying before that Chelsea game. And it wasn't tactical genius, it just was quite simple. And I think that's where our improvements come from. The balance of the team is better. Am I saying those three players on top draw? Of course I'm not. They all are. But, you know, when you're dealing in the Premier League now, especially, you've got top players all over the place, and putting them all in the same team is not going to work. Look at what happened with Lee Carsley in Greece at Wembley. What he tried to do was he tried to get all this attacking talent he had, all these number 10s on the pitch at the same time, Jude Bellingham, Cole Palmer, Phil Foden. And it just upset the balance of the team, and it was the only black mark on his tenure as the England manager. In hindsight, you'd probably think, why didn't I just stick to its traditional formation rather than going with the best? I've done it myself as well when I was at Bury. I signed some terrific attacking players, and I put them all in the team one night down at Fleetwood. And Uwe Rosler was the manager of Fleetwood at the time. And we ended up getting beat 5-4 and missed a penalty in the injury time for 5 each. And after the game in Uwe's office, he said there was no other result that was going to happen in that game than a high-scoring game with the team I'd put out. Because one, I had that many attacking players playing without defensive mind on them. And two, they were going to cause the opposition problems. So it doesn't bode well. And it's quite simple. It's about getting the best 11 that represent the team and give you the balance and the rhythm where you can go and get results. And thankfully, you know, Eddie was always going to make 1 or 2 changes in the Carabao Cup. The lads who came in, the likes of Sean and other people, produced good performances. He kept the team the same, and we're coming on to a good run now.
That's brilliant. That's exactly the way that you explained it, and it's so simple after the event, Nash. So you've still got your manager's head on. You're picking your best 11 that's obviously fit. We've had a lot of injuries with long-term injuries, I'd say, with Lascelles, Botman, the very unlucky Kraft. Trippier comes into that, but obviously Callum Wilson is a long-term injury. So your players that's fit. We're starting with a goalie. Obviously, there's 2-3 goalkeepers at the club. but there's two that's genuinely going to play, I think. Pope, one, do you see him as an England international? And two, there's a little bit of murmuring about Dubravka and about moving on. I mean, you know about goalkeepers. You've signed goalkeepers for minimum money and sold them for fortunes in your managerial career.
Yeah.
How important is it to keep two top class goalkeepers happy? How do you do that? And is Pope your number one?
First part of your question, for me, Nick Pope's number one. Thoroughly deserves to be in the England squad. Could have possibly done with a few more opportunities, certainly in games, not in competition, to see, you know, if he was worthy of that place and ready to step in if anything was to happen to Pickford in the England squad. Two, it's an unbelievable difficult scenario as a manager, Joe, to get two top class keepers and keep them both happy, because you know the difference between outfield and goalkeeper. Outfield players will always have an opportunity to get on the pitch as a sub, and like we've just talked about with Sean and them in the Carabao Cup, and impress the manager and try and get a place in the team because they can come off the bench, etc. Injuries, suspensions, all this type of thing, can play various different positions. With a keeper, you know, they very rarely get a suspension. You know, they might get the odd game. I know Pope's had a couple of red cards since he's been here, and keepers have got an opportunity then. He's had a couple of injuries as well, but that's the only way. And if you've got someone who is worthy to be in the team, but he cannot see a way of getting in and he's sitting on the bench on a continuous basis, if he's got anything about him, he'll not want to hang around. So it is a real difficult one to try and keep two keepers, and even more, like you say, we've got 3 or 4 on my books capable of coming into the first team, if to keep them happy, because it's a completely different position. And you very rarely want to chop and change your keeper, you know, throughout the season. Is the late great Brian Clough once said, you get yourself a top keeper, he's worth at least 9 points in a season to you, and that was probably when it was only 2 points for a win. So you're probably looking at 15, 16 points in today's game, and possibly more. So I've benefited from that, both on the managerial and playing side, you know, having some world-class keepers playing behind us in Shea Given and Edwin van der Sar, Thomas Sorensen. So yeah, all those type of things are important. So Nick Pope for me is the one. Unfortunately, Martin Dubravka, I think he's probably going to be looking in January now to go and start playing, because everybody worth their weight in their salt want to be playing. They don't want to be sitting on the bench. It's, you know, working extremely hard Monday to Friday, because the keepers there the training regime is very, very difficult. They work extremely hard, and then not having that adrenaline rush on a match day. So yeah, tough one, but a really balancing act.
Brilliant. Fullbacks and Nash. Obviously, Trippier's been injured, but we've got Tino and Lewis Hall both started for England. I mean, two fullbacks starting in England international, obviously, for the first time in a long time. Do you see them as first choice at our team?
I certainly Hall, and I've got what I will say is I've got to admit and hold my hand up here. You know, a year ago, possibly a bit longer, when he first come, I wasn't sure. I was a little bit, had the jury was out. I wasn't sure whether he was what we were looking for. But I think the improvement that the lad himself has shown, but it shows you the quality of Eddie and his staff's coaching, what they've done. And that lad has just been superb this season. And all I can see is his debut when he came on sub, and then his full debut at Wembley. He just took it in his stride. He treated it as if he was playing for his school team. He just looked so accomplished. He looked relaxed. Thought he was terrific in both occasions. And yeah, he'd be our left back. I think an outstanding young player who's got many, many years ahead of him. So, you know, that was a great bit of business by Eddie and his recruitment team at the time to get him so young. Livramento, another outstanding young player. And great to see him get his, as you said, it was a proud night the other week when we had 3 Newcastle players in the starting 11 and those 2 fullbacks. And Livramento he's another exciting player, breaks forward with the ball, great energy, can defend as well, not just attack minded. And now what I would say, the only thing with that is a fit and 100% Kieran Trippier, who's been an unbelievable signing for the football club, both in his playing and his leadership. If he can get back to the levels he's been at in a black and white shirt before, you'd still think there's a year or two left in him. But if that's not the case, then we've got a fantastic young an up-and-coming replacement who can be at this club for many, many years. So at the moment, it's a tough one, toss of the coin. On current form, I'd go with Livramento, but if Trippier can get back to where he was, we'd give him another year or 18 months in the team, and then Livramento can come and establish himself as the number one, certainly.
Fab stuff. Your two centre-halves, Big Dan and Shaw, are them your first choice?
At the moment, because Botman's long term, we're not too sure when his comeback's due. He looked a class act before he got the injury. Still a youngster. Dan, just for me, I know him personally. Had him at Birmingham, managed him. Absolute diamond of a lad. Anyone deserves success, it's him. Trains the way he plays. Massive Newcastle fan, heart on his sleeve. Still see him around the city and so proud of what he's done. Never let the football club down at left back or as left-sided centre-half, and he's been terrific since he's been called upon over the last few weeks to play that left-sided centre-back role. And I think he surprised so many people when he played left-back. Everyone was thinking 6'7" left-back, not quick pace, not one of his assets. With quick wingers are second nature in the Premier League, thinking he'd be given a tough time. But because of his determination, his attitude, his willingness to work hard and fight for everything, he made a great fist of that position. But he's doing terrific at centre half. And Fabian Shaw, I've had a debate with many friends of mine, because obviously you remember me playing with the great Philippe Albert, and Shaw has to come into that equation when you talk about best ball playing centre backs Newcastle have had, and both being from overseas. And obviously I just swear with Philippe all the time, a little bit of bias because I played with a big Belgian. But Shaw, I've got to say, is been terrific. In today's game, when you think about the money that was spent on him, has been a snip and a great signing for the club, and continues to be so.
So, middle of the park, I'm leaving it to you, Nash, and it's your formation as well. So you go ahead. Two little things I want to just add on to it before you start. Is Sean Longstaff suffering? You will know, as being a local lad, and not getting a game this season as much as he has done. And can Tonali and Bruno play together in the same team? How do you see it?
First question, I do think there is the case of Sean being the local lad and he'll accept whatever happens, and he's not the flashy signing of the other three guys, the two Brazilians and Italian, one coming from, AC Milan as their captain. Sean just coming through the ranks, so I think there's been a lot of underestimation of him, without a doubt. He's the first one, if anything goes wrong, in my opinion, to get the criticism, so very unfairly at times. And so, yeah, I mean, can answer that question, yeah. Can Tonali and Gamiresh play together? Yeah, I think so. All I'll say is that Tonali, Gamiresh and Joe Linton threesome have proved at this moment in time they cannot. I think the stat is the only time when they've started together we've won was Tonali's first ever game, his debut against Villa. So the stats and the results back that up. And if they wanted to have that three, they've got to find a solution to make that three work, and to put the pressure on Eddie and his staff to pick the three. Because as a manager, you kind of keep picking that three if they're not helping you get results. It doesn't matter how good they are individually. If the combination and the system isn't working together, you have to do something different. So at this moment in time, unfortunately, the three would be Longstaff, Gamiresh and Joe Linton. I mean, Joe Linton has to be in there just for his power, his pace, his athleticism, his drive. He's turned into a midfield player who can score goals, important goals for you. So I think with those three, you know, you have that balance, and Tonali isn't a bad backup to come off the bench for one of those three as the game gets stretched in the latter parts, in the last 30 minutes or whatever. People will say, well, he's a top player, etc., etc. I'm not denying that, but you know, the stats are there for all to see. What we're going to do, what's the other option? Do we drop Gamirez or Joe Linton from the three then? I don't think so. So unfortunately, he has to be the one that makes that sacrifice at this moment in time, and that would be my three going forward.
Nash, I just want to press you on Bruno because obviously you're a midfield player, you're not inside out. His form last season was sparkling. He's never really hit the heights this season. Do you think the captain's armband's weighing him down? And what can you put on why his form hasn't achieved the heights of what it did last season?
One, I don't think the captain armband's an issue for him. I think he's absolutely loving it. I think you see him, he reacts when he goes and presses or makes a tackle. He jumps up as if he scored a wonder goal, hit the Gallagher. He's got the motivation. I think you're right in saying his form last year was sparkling and his standards were ridiculously high. You know, he must have been in the top three central midfield players in the Premier League. And when you're talking about some of the players in that position, you know, that's a good place to be, in the top three of that. And he's dipped below that this year for various different reasons. You know, you could say there's a lot of things he had when he goes on international duty. There's all this travelling. Oh, he had it last season, people might say, but when it's an accumulation and you haven't had a long break as well, it builds up and it builds up. And also, you know, he is the talisman for us. Everyone looks at him to drive us forward and do things. And sometimes that cannot always happen. It has to be one of your other teammates. And that's probably why, another reason why it works so well with Sean, because Sean can be his legs in and around him and allow Bruno to use this tremendous football brain. He's got an unbelievable technique, both feet inside and outside of the foot, to slide passes into people or create opportunities for himself. So I think that's a good thing for Eddie. He knows that we're hitting good form, but we've also got players who are following the team in terms of they're starting to build up their performance levels. And I think Bruno is in that camp. His performance levels are starting to improve now, and hopefully we get him back to his real best very, very soon, and then we can kick on again.
I do believe he's the most fouled player, Nash, in Premier League because, like you say, his ability, his close control, second to none, and he invites everybody to smash him and take a tackle and take a chance on him.
That's a great point, Joe, because you know this when it's been talked about, and when you talk about, sometimes people talk about bravery in football, and people get misconstrued about, oh, bravery, that means flying into crazy tackles and putting your head where there's a defender's boot. Sometimes bravery means, are you going to get on the ball? I mean, you know, and you played with him. The best person who had the most amount of bravery in football was Paul Gascoigne. He'd go and get the ball where there's two men marking him. He'd go and get the ball off the centre backs. He'd go and get the ball in the middle of the pitch. If he'd wasted the other 9 passes, he made sure the 10th one was the killer pass, and he kept getting on it. And that's bravery, and that's what Bruno does. And Bruno shows there's also the bravery when you're dribbling and going past someone. You know you could be potentially getting hit with a dodgy tackle, but you're still prepared to do that. And he has that in abundance, Bruno. He's prepared to get hurt and to keep getting the ball in tight situations, because he knows he has the ability to play that final ball that can kill the opponent.
Super stuff. So you're front three, and I hope you are going to say how well Joe Willock has linked up play between the front men and the middle of the park. Who's your front three?
I've got to say, I mean, my first wide player, and I'm very similar to Eddie. I've known Eddie for a long time in terms of management, coming up against him, and I know what he thinks. His teams have always consisted of direct, speedy, wide players who like to get it, full-backs, and create opportunities. So Anthony Gordon, who's been in sensational form over the last year or so, possibly longer for club and country, has to be in that. He's got pace to, you know, he's got that one scary thing that even the defenders at the top level are terrified of, and that's raw pace. He's got that in abundance. He's direct. He's got a great attitude. He's got the work ethic that I know Eddie wants from his wide players without the ball. And he not only contributes with his quality of set play and crosses, he contributes himself with his fair share of goals coming in at the back post, the Pomo position, as you know, Joe. So, so he's good at that. On the other side, there's opportunities where you've quietly mentioned Joe Willock, outstanding footballer. Now, if you change your system a little bit, you could play with a diamond and put Willock in there, but I'll be sticking with the way Eddie's going in terms of that 4-3-3. And you go, well, you've got the options of, do you play Barnes out there? He probably prefers the left, just like Gordon does. You've got Jacob Murphy, who is just never let Newcastle down, by the way. I've had the pleasure to manage him at Blackpool as well. Another great boy. Being, love to see the work he gets through and how he's took on board the last couple of years and what he's achieved, and how the fans think of him. Brilliant. But I'd say you'd probably go with Willock with his guile, his athleticism. But what you would rather see with him, rather than just being an out and out wide player and going at fullbacks, he may be allowed to drift in field and give you that another extra player in the middle, because that's what a lot of teams are trying to do now with these inverted fullbacks. Trent Alexander at Liverpool, Kyle Walker and such at Man City. They're trying to create another body to create even more of an overload in the middle of the pitch. But I think with Willock, because I think he looks a bright footballer. So without the ball, he'll get back into a good position on the right hand side of the three. But with the ball, let him have a free rein, just go in them little pockets, we call them, and hurt people. And with his athleticism, his dribbling skills, his change of pace, his energy, he could cause numerous problems. So that would be the two wide. And then obviously I've got to go with Isak, because for me, he's one of the best strikers in Europe. I seen an article where the other week, and it said something like Newcastle could be prepared to sell Alexander Isak for anything between 100 and 120 million, which would then enable them to go and get a world-class striker. And I thought straight away, well, we don't need to. We've got a world-class striker. We don't need to go and spend that
Sure.
100. He is a world-class striker. So he's got everything in his locker. He's got his first touch is unbelievable. His dribbling ability is unbelievable. His awareness, his finishing, head and feet. You've been a great number 9. You guys, it's about passing it in the net a lot of the time. You do put your foot through it, and he seems to do that. Caresses the ball into the goal. Where us lads who weren't used to scoring a lot, we used to just try and bang it as hard as we could and hope for the best. So, he's absolutely world class, and so for him, he's a crucial part to what we're trying to do. It's a tough one for Eddie, because I just wish you mentioned some of the players there. We've mentioned Botman, we've mentioned Wilson. These players are top players who Eddie's been without for a long period of time, and we just talked about the importance of natural number 9s, and that would be great for Eddie and his staff to have an Isak on firing on all cylinders, 60, 70, 75 minutes. Then you've got Callum Wilson, an out-and-out goal scorer, an experienced goal scorer, to come on, and that had worked when the two of them were fit, and they alternated, and he brought the other one on, and sometimes he brought the two of them on and played with Isak a little bit deeper. It's been a brilliant bit of ammunition to have. So hopefully in the next few weeks, Eddie will have the opportunity to get all the players back and be ready to unleash what I thought was a strong squad. It was about a month ago, I think, maybe before the Champions League, when there's a few games where I went and we had a really strong bench, and I thought, that for me, that's when you decide and you can assess whether you're a top 4 team. You look at the players on the bench, or they're going to do the weekend year if you make changes. And we had a spell where you look at the bench and you had Harvey Barnes and you had Callum Wilson, you had Tonali or whatever. You had all these players, and you're thinking, and Dubravka, and you're thinking, wow, what a bench we've got. I still thought at that time it was still a little bit lacking in depth in terms of when you're fighting on all these different competitions with the Champions League. But that's the key, trying to keep them fit. Can we do some business in January, which is always really difficult window, and then go from there.
Definitely. Nash, you've got your manager's head on, and it never gets said enough for me. But the achievement that you had at Huddersfield Town, one of your big jobs that you had, you went over 40 bloody games without being beat, man. I mean, what an achievement that is. And you talk like a manager. You talk honestly, too honest at times, because some managers these days, I mean, Jesus, there's 85% of overseas managers or coaches in the Premier League. I mean, where do you see, like, the English managers coming through with just appointed a German? Did Eddie Howe get an interview? Did he not? I mean, some of our sources are that mixed up. We've got tomato with mayonnaise at the minute, and we're getting Mary Rose for your prawn cocktail at Christmas. It's frightening.
I tell you what, Joe, if they were prepared to speak to an English manager, he should have been at the top of the list. But I'm glad he didn't, because, that would have caused a lot of turmoil for us, because he's been absolutely superb, and I think he's great, and I think it gives us a great opportunity to deliver that first bit of elusive silverware for a long, long time. But he certainly should have been in the equation. But it looks like to me that they'd made their mind up quite quickly on Thomas Tuchel. So, it is tough on English coaches. I've got to say it's very difficult, and it's always been a way in that if you wanted to become a manager in the Premier League, you probably had to go with a team that got promoted and be yourself and do that. And then it became, quite difficult. So I think Eddie's doing a great job, not just for himself in Newcastle. What he's doing is flying the flag for the next group of British managers to say, hey, listen, there is quality managers in England and Britain, and to allow them to manage at the highest level. You talk about the Huddersfield thing, I still in my room where I keep all my football memorabilia, have the trophy from the LMA that was presented as for the record of 43 games unbeaten. Beat, as I just mentioned earlier, and I'm sure the late great Brian Clough, 42 games. Mine was 43, and something that is proud of, because when you think back, as an ex-player, how hard it is to win football matches and not lose the odd one here and there. And for us to nearly go through a full season and do that was phenomenal. But also to add, it depends how what context you put the success in, because I always say, and people find it a bit strange, but I believe I'd done a better job at Birmingham City than I did at Huddersfield because of the circumstances that happened at Birmingham, with having to be a fire sale, having to cut the wage bill from 26 million to 6 million in 3 transfer windows. So it means you sell off all your prized assets. You have a wage bill that's in the bottom 3 of the championship, but you still keep the club in there. The fans' expectations were never going to change, and rightly so. They're an unbelievable set of fans, Birmingham City. They deserve to be in the Premier League, and hopefully this new ownership group, getting them back from them dropping into League One, can allow them to do that. But their expectations could never be dropped, and I could never allow that to drop. But in the reality was to keep that club in the Championship like I did for 2.5 seasons before I was moved on was, in my opinion, a better managerial job. It didn't look better on the eyes, and my win percentage wasn't as high. But when you're dealing with all the circumstances, it was one. And the other thing for me is, and this is probably a big reason why when me and Bobby sat down about RB Salzburg, I was really encouraged and spoke about the development and how Salzburg developed their players, is that was a big thing for me as manager. So every club I've been at, I've either brought players in on low transfer fees and sold them for big transfer fees to the Premier League, or I've developed a lot of players from whatever those clubs' academies were, and give them opportunities. For example, I gave 15 academy debuts in my time as Birmingham City manager. you know, and we went on to sell players for big money. Young Damari Gray, as a 16-year-old boy, I gave him his debut after only one under-21 match. He went on to become a Premier League winner with Leicester City. And all these type of players, and also the loan market as well, spotting good young players, like I said, that a young Dan Burn, a young Jesse Lingard, a young you know, Danny Drinkwater at Man United, who wanted to win the league with Leicester, you know, all these type of things. I watched the Ipswich Man United game yesterday. Their centre half, Cameron Burgess, was playing in League One with me at Bury, you know, 7-8 years ago. So when you watch these games and you see these lads, what they've progressed, you feel really proud that you've played a little part in their career, and that gives me a lot of satisfaction. The development of seeing these young footballers go on to bigger and better things. And the great thing for me, I still keep in touch with a lot of them. I got a couple of texts off a couple of them the other day. They've gone into, some of them have gone into being football agents. They've gone to the dark side, as I keep telling them. And so yeah, it's all that type of stuff. But great, you know, it's proven more and more difficult, I've got to say. Especially when you get to the top. If you look what's happened at Leicester, Steve Cooper, great guy. It's always going to be tough, them coming back up, and so yeah, it's a tough environment to be in. But Eddie's flying the flag for the British lads really, really well.
Brilliant, Nash. I mean, you should be looking to this place called Jeopardy, because every time I pick a paper up, there's a manager's job in Jeopardy. There must be a lovely place, Jeopardy. But for me, what shines through, Nash, talking to you straight away, is always your enthusiasm and your passion for the game. If you've got any ambition at all, Lee, I must be getting serious, I call you Lee, to get back into either management, coaching, head coaching, like you've got so much to offer, man. Would you put your CV, do you still stick your CVs in? Do you still apply for things?
Not really, but if there's something that comes up that I think's exciting, that I think, oh, something can happen there, and I still take notice of football at all levels, and I watch crazy amounts of football on the TV, you know, always keeping up with what's going on in the game. Obviously watching Newcastle on a regular basis, home and away, going all over Europe with Bobby now and stuff like that. So, you know, football's still a main part of my life. But no, listen, it can also be stressful. It can also, you know, give you a lot of stress, a lot of imbalance in your life in terms of, you know, the quality of life you want to have and things you miss out on. And because, Joe, you know me, we've known each other a long time. For me, when I manage, I don't just manage the team, I'm managing the club. So whenever you have a bad result or you're on a bad run of results, I take it to heart that it's affecting the supporters first and foremost. They're the most important people in the club. But when I've gone into clubs, because I've gone into clubs where they've been in really horrible situations, Kilmarnock and Bury, you know, when I took over, those clubs were in relegation, you know, trouble, massive. And thankfully got them out of it. But, you know, when one of them was a playoff, so that went down to the last day. The other one, we'd done it with about 2 games to go. And my mind and process wasn't for me and the players, obviously. That was important. It was the people behind the scenes in the offices, because when you know you've been at different clubs, these people are usually the lifeblood of the club. They love that club and they're working for them, and they're not picking up huge salaries. It's just the fact that they can go and socialise with people and say, oh, I work for X club, I work for Y, and it's their club and they feel proud to do it. And usually when you go down, they're the first people to lose their job. So that used to play on my mind a lot with the pressures and the stresses of, and obviously Birmingham, when we went to the last day and stayed up with them, you know, I said at the time, and I still believe, if we had went down to League One that day at Bolton, that could have been Armageddon for that football club, because the finances were in such a horrific place as well. Thankfully, with this time that it happened, even though they probably didn't want it to happen, because the ownership group are so invested in the club, and they're going to give a new stadium, a new training ground. they're going to pump millions into the squad, and alongside financial fair play. There's a chance that if they get the ball rolling, which they have, get promoted from League One, they could kick on again from the Championship. But whereas we had those financial issues, if we had went down to League One then, I'm not sure you would have seen them come back for a very, very long time.
Fabulous insight, Nash. Fabulous insight. I'm going on to Christmas parties. This is funny. Right, so my Christmas party, right, my first one I ever had was when I just turned pro at the Tyne. And I decided it was a fancy dress carry-on.
Yes.
So I decided, because it's frozen in December, it's frozen in July, but it's frozen in December. And I went as a diver, right? So I had this wetsuit on and I had the old snorkel carry-on, the flippers and all the rest of it, right? But to my, well, not to my knowledge, put it that way, but somebody had the foresight to stick an A4 sized piece of paper on me back, slapped it on me back with the letters MUFF. Now, I'll let you work that out, what I was, right? So I'm walking around the town with that on, and then all of a sudden, we've met John Bailey, who was signed from Everton, right? Now, I've never seen anything like it in my life, Nash, right? He's got this fancy dress outfit on, right, which is halved down his body. On this side, he's got half a policeman's hat. He's got half the policeman's uniform with the sergeant's stripes on. He's got the truncheon down the back and one copper boot. On the other side, so he's split like that. He's got this dark-haired wig, right? He's got a bra on his, well, I knew it was his left tit because he would have felt the right tit if he'd seen himself. Anyway, he had the sussies on, the knickers, and a pair of, like, one high heel. Now, we're at the bottom of Northumberland Street, right? We've just been at the bar 42. And he comes out the bottom of Northumberland Street where Warwick Street is, and the buses is coming out. And he's went on the side of the copper's uniform, and he's put his hand up and whistled for the bus to stop. The bus driver stopped, right? And the bus driver's gone, "What's the matter?" He went, "There's a bomb scare in Phoenix. You've got to get all the people off the bus." And I swear to you, all the people come off the bus, Christmas shopping, and they're all getting off. And as the bus starts pulling away, Bales has turned to the other side, and you can just see his arse hanging out of this dark-haired wig. Unbelievable story. What's your Christmas parties been like? Have you got any that you can tell us about? And is it right that a lot of the other clubs from up and down the country used to head for the Tyne because it was the best night out ever? You got any stories, mate?
Well, on that scene, yeah, I mean, when I was captain of Fulham, I brought the Fulham lads up here once. I mean, we didn't have any as funny as your story there, but the only other one was when the famous Newcastle one, Shearer's first Christmas party with us. And we were fancy dress. I was Barney Rubble. Stevie Watson was Fred Flintstone. Alan Shearer came as Terry McDermott with the perm, the tash, and the black and white strip with 10 on the back. And all in fancy dress. And we'd been like around the monument area where you say it, Grey Street, etc. And one of the lads, I don't know who it was, went one of the sports shops and got a football. And we went round by the monument, the statue. Big group of it, must have been 25, 30, including big Derek Wright was dressed as a fairy. You can imagine what that looked like. And we played one touch, all in this fancy dress. And you could see everyone looking. And at first, it didn't clock who it was. It was all in these different outfits, you know. But then the word got round and we're booting this ball around in the air, one touch. And obviously after a few beers as well, and then it came, there was hundreds, and then they started coming out, and before we knew it, we had to make a run for it because we never would have got to the next bar. So that was just the way it was. I couldn't imagine the footballers of today, one would do that, but two could get away with it in any way, you know. So yeah, some interesting ones, that's got to say, you know.
Quality stuff. So Nash, we've got a few questions that I've just got lined up from people. Obviously,
yeah.
This is coming out at the weekend. Obviously, they're going to say this. I'll put it my way. I'll interpret the question, right? Sometimes when you get in a dressing room, we've been in a few. I've been in a lot more, obviously. More clubs than bloody Jack Nicklaus. But you get in there and there's 30 odd blokes, Nash, and there's invariably some that you're not going to get on with. Now, when you get your chance, I mean, you said it before when you were talking about training the way you play. There used to be more injuries in training than anything else. I mean, I got my jaw broken in a training session, right?
Yeah.
By a born again Christian, believe it or not, who was still a very, very good friend to this day, right? And no malice was ever intended. But at the same time, if you don't like somebody, you can often get into what you're on about them tackles, and not the bravery one that you were on about by having the ball all the time, but the ones where you're going through somebody to hurt them and you're going to smash them and leave one on them. Has there ever been a player that you've left one on that you've thought you have a little bit of that yet?
Not purposely. I mean, during the sessions, because they got that competitive, and got, were that intense under Kevin, and had such a good squad that, the training sometimes was harder in the games because of the standard of the player. But if you've been there, Joe, when you're playing in a small-sided game and your team might be getting a bit of a dousing, and you lose it a little bit and you leave someone on, somebody or something like that. So yeah, I mean, it was probably worse and this made a big impact on me, because when I become a manager, I didn't join in. But it used to be worse sometimes when Kevin or whatever would join in and he'd left us out on the Saturday and I'd go and 2-foot him, So yeah, there's been those stories, and that's why I purposely didn't never pick myself as a manager to join in the training, because I'm sure there would have been 4 or 5 players who had left out in the previous game, desperate to just leave one on it. So, as I've always mentioned, one of the great things for me was the squads I played in, great lads, but because the training was so intense, and we treated it like a match as well. So it was the willingness to win and do anything, and then you brush it off afterwards. There was never any, being childish and taking it beyond the training pitch, etc. And you used to laugh and joke about it later, the next time we met up for a beer or a night out, so, or whatever. And it was great crack like that. So yeah, I've never been in a position. I mean, there's been 1 or 2 players at various different times in my career that I haven't particularly got on with or liked, because I didn't feel they were doing the right thing for the team and the group.
Did you dig them out?
Oh yeah, I mean, listen, they were the ones where obviously you had a big turnover of players when I went to Fulham in terms of French players. And the thing about that, we had the French manager, the great little maestro Jean Tigana, and he brought majority of the French boys in, but he was first to nail the French lads. It wasn't just because they were his signings that it was all going to be okay. But he brought a striker in for big money, Steve Marley from Lyon. And Steve had the potential to be a great player. He was a great athlete, athletic, great leap. Didn't hit the ground running in terms of goals, but just seemed to be there in terms of what the game was bringing him off the pitch, the finances, or was more interested in what car he was bringing in to train the next day. Didn't really want to stay out and put right what was going wrong on the pitch, because you have them spells, and the only way to come out of it is to work to work as hard as you possibly can. And I just felt Steve wasn't doing that as much as he should have, and he didn't want to be part of the group. And that was probably the one. As I said, there's only been a couple of times where I felt that with players, but there's always been the skirmish in that. And all I'll say is even on a match day, we fell out with people. There's been skirmishes and there's been fallouts, verbal ones on the pitch, little bit of handbags or whatever, fisticuffs, whatever you would say at half time. Straight after the game, forgotten about. As long as we got the 3 points, you forget about it, go again and become pals. And I think that's why if any successful team has that type of environment. The game's obviously changing a lot now. You don't have as many leaders and you don't have as many people who react in that way. They do it differently. So that's something that you've just got to deal with.
Who was Lee Clark watching when you grew up? I can remember you playing for England schoolboys, scoring hat-trick at Wembley, outstanding. And I saw you around the club just coming through as a bairn. But who were you watching, Nash? Who was your heroes growing up?
1982 team. Kevin, Pedro, Wadler, Terry Mack in behind, Carsey in goal, Ando, Davy Mack. Who else we got? who was our left back at the time. Who was trying to think of the rest of the players.
You could have a John Ryan and Steve
John
Carney,
Ryan.
Peter Haddock.
Mally Brown came and got injured, didn't he?
Yeah.
Spell. I had Jeff. Was Jeff around? Jeff Clark.
Jeff Clark was playing, yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, you mentioned that front three, which were just majestic. My favourite team, Nash. But you were part of the entertainers. Your entertainers are getting back in January. You're looking forward to seeing them?
Absolutely, I cannot wait. Whenever we meet up, it's like we've never been away. It's the crack just starts straight away as soon as we get back with each other. The banter's flying, you know, and it's great to see them. I love them. I love them loads. You know, I cannot wait every time there's an opportunity to get together with them. Just, you know, it's as if we've never been away from each other, Joe, and it's been like 20, 30 years, you know, and we just, when we get back together as a big group, the banter's just absolutely flying. We remember the good old days, but we've still got that crack with each other, even though, you know, a bit older and a bit greyer and a bit fatter in some cases. So, yeah, brilliant. I love it. I cannot wait for it.
There's a brilliant do that's coming up for the entertainers. There's a couple of do's actually in January. There's the entertainers, obviously the book by Will Scott. But there's a do at Gateshead Leisure Centre. I think it's going to be bigger. I think it's Lee Clark's on with Joe Allen. That's right. That'll be brilliant, that one.
That tops a lot.
That tops a lot. I want you to tell us, if you can, your best moment in a black and white shirt.
It'll never beat, no matter what happened, unless we had won the Premier League, which obviously we didn't. It'll always be the day I made my debut, because I lived the dream. I lived the dream that hundreds of thousands of lads wanted to do before and after me, and, you know, since me, whatever. All those lads and on the terraces wanted to represent Newcastle United men's team, and I was lucky enough to do that over 2 different periods, one of them being one of the most successful periods in the club's history. And that makes me so proud that was the catalyst for everything. You know, there's been other games where you win and you play brilliant football and you score or whatever, and this, that and the other, but that one will always stick in my mind because of what I'd achieved.
Nash, it's been an absolute joy speaking to you, mate. Honestly, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I could talk to you all day and all night. It's lovely to see you. Thanks again, mate, and I'll see you soon.
Great, Joe. Thank you so much.
Cheers.
A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. Email them info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel. Congratulations to them on their Travel and Tourism Award 2024. 2-crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges. All excursions included. Find them at their website www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. Just £30 per person deposit. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. And don't forget, we are also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify and other podcast providers. If you get the time, please hit the subscribe button. It does do us a big favour. Hit the like button, which is the thumb under the video. That helps the channel grow. And click share to share to your other social medias. You can also hit the join button and become a member. Some dates for your diary. In aid of Newcastle Cat and Dog Shelter, the Long Sands play the Clooney. That takes place on Saturday, January the 4th, 2025, with support from Lilac Lane and the Chris Norris Band. Tickets pre-sale are £15 from newcastlelegends.com or from the venue direct. Peter Beardsley will be doing a talk-in at the Tyneside Irish Centre. That takes place on the 10th of January. Tickets are £30. VIP tickets are £60 and you can get them from newcastlelegends.com. An evening with the Entertainers takes place at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House in Newcastle on the 24th of January. Kevin Scott, Steve Watson, Steve Howie, John Beresford, Rule Fox, Peter Beardsley, Rob Lee, Keith Gillespie, Liam O'Brien, Darren Peacock, Paul Bracewell, Lee Clark and Killer Kill Klein are all going to be there with Gibbo, and you can get your tickets from the box office 0191 243 1171 or the website tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. Lee Clark will be at the Gateshead Leisure Centre. That is on the 31st of January, and tickets available from the Leisure Centre 0191 250 5066. Les Ferdinand will be at the Newcastle O2 City Hall the 6th of April 2025. That is a 12 o'clock start until 4 p.m. in the afternoon. Tickets available from ticketmaster.co.uk. And Will Scott's book on the Entertainers is out now. £18.99, over 380 pages, and a lot of unseen photographs. You can buy that book now from newcastlelegends.com.